Wisdom with Scott Allen.
Hello, I am your host, Scott Allen, and this is Phronesis, Practical Wisdom for Leaders. If the topic is leadership, I'm in. I've spent more than 20 years in the field teaching, learning, writing, and questioning. When I'm not working on Phronesis, I travel, delivering keynotes, working with individuals and teams, and helping people from organizations across industries become better leaders. Want to learn more? Visit me at scottjallen.net. Phronesis offers a smart, fast-paced discussion about all things leadership. We explore relevant topics and incorporate practical tips to help you make a difference in how you lead and live. Listen Notes lists Phronesis in the top 3% of podcasts worldwide. Phronesis is the official podcast of the International Leadership Association. ILA brings together those who teach, study, and develop leadership, advancing leadership knowledge and practice for a better world. Learn more at ila-net.org. Finally, if you enjoy Phronesis, please subscribe to stay current on our weekly episodes. If you find an episode that resonates, please share it with your colleagues and friends. And if you want more content, subscribe to my newsletter, The Leader's Edge. The link is in the show notes. As always, thanks for listening. And now, here's today's show.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for showing up wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here today. I have John Bernatovicz, and he is a person who's been in my sphere for a number of years, but we've never really had a time to connect and really get to know each other a little bit. And so I was on his podcast and asked him to be on my podcast. He is my eyes in the field, ears on the ground. And that's really where we're going to take this conversation today. He is a convener. He's an individual who hosts a number of really wonderful conferences. John, tell listeners a little bit about you, and then we're going to jump into our conversation. Really where we're going to focus our time today, listeners, is what are some themes he's seeing out in the field as he's working with others? What are some themes that he's coming across? But first, tell folks about you, John.
All right. Can I start off with the new way that I'm asking to be introduced when I do keynote presentations? Because I thought the long form talk about John was so boring and I could see the crowd being lost. It's called 3 Truths and a Lie. And you can tell me which one of these is the 3 truths and 1 lie.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. I named my firm after my kids. My firm's name is Willory.
Okay.
I once beat Tiger Woods in a round of golf.
Okay.
I would rather be named Brett, not John, and I've run 6 marathons.
I'm gonna go with the marathons because I think Brett Bernatovicz would be really cool. That's a cool name. Tiger Woods is too random to not have happened. Willory, I can get it, believe it, but it doesn't have an intuitive kind of name that I can attach to it. I'm gonna go with the marathons, John.
You mean Brett?
Brett.
Yes. You are exactly correct. When I was 18 years old, I beat Tiger Woods in a golf tournament called the Western Junior in Chicago, which was pretty cool.
Bam!
At a family reunion, when I was younger, maybe about 25 years old, my poor parents asked the questions, everybody happy with their name, and I was the only one to tell them I wasn't. And then I became Uncle Brett from there because they asked me what I wanted to be called. And the coolest kid I knew as a young person was this kid on my soccer team named Brett. He was good looking and all the girls liked him, and I had glasses, and I was a big nerd. I have a son, Will, and a daughter, Mallory. I merged their names together to make the firm Willory, and I've run 6 marathon relays, but not a full marathon. I think I could do a half marathon. Maybe I think I could have done one, but doing a full marathon to me was way too intimidating. I'm more of a golfer than a runner, but in short order, that is who I am. I'm podcasting from Bath, Ohio. I've been married for 28 years. I'm a graduate of Kent State University, Go Flashes. And I'm on this mission to transform how people feel at work. And I'm so thankful to have our friendship, Scott.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, sir, you are convening hundreds of people, thousands of people a year. What are you seeing out there? What are some of the conversations that are happening? I know my listeners are going to be interested.
I'm gonna cut this into 4 areas just to try to keep my frame of reference in mind in that category, cataloging things. First off, about how work is changing. The workplace is changing. There's a number of variables inside of that. One of the primary reasons why the workplace is changing is technology and the adoption of that by individual contributors, leaders, managers, executives. The other is about the intentionality of creating community within your own network, your own social, professional, and personal network. And the last thing is this never-ending battle, I'll use the word battle, that exists between employers and employees. And I think it is becoming worse. I think it got better in COVID. I think it's progressively getting worse, where there's this you versus me mindset. And I'm advocating through the human resource professional, that's the mainstay of the client base that I work on, how can they change that dichotomy at their work. But yeah, to start off is how the workplace is changing is, to me, it's an interesting thing to study. It's an interesting to see the changes in the workforce and the impact it's having on organizations and people.
Okay, so let's jump in.
All right, here's the thing. Number one, as we all know, for those of us that experienced COVID and from a workplace perspective, there was a bit of a employer-employee fraction that was taking place prior to that. It's always been this push-pull. Again, my line of work, my professional experience has been primarily in supporting the human resource profession. I was blessed to write a book called HR Like a Boss that put me on the map, probably undeservingly, but so be it. I get asked these questions at time. And as a result of writing that book, we built a community called the HR Like a Boss community. We also organize a number of events, one of them being a Disrupt HR event, which is about 5 minutes for you explaining a disruptive topic inside of all things business, HR, et cetera. That being said, as far as the workplace changing pre-COVID and prior to that, there's always been this tension between employer and employee, and HR's sandwiched in between it. That's been the primary perspective I've had for a long time. Then in COVID, we galvanized together because we all could, at least for the only time in my life, Scott, I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah.
We all could be empathetic to each other. We were all going through COVID in our own varying stage, some way worse, having loved ones that were maybe stuck in nursing homes, some that got the disease and passed away, those that were concerned for their work, and everything in between. As a result, where we work changed. A lot of us had to go home and work from home, and the disruption that took place and what that meant. And all of a sudden, several years later, we had people getting multiple jobs at the same time because they could. Organizations couldn't figure out where exactly you were working, and you could then, in essence, have two particular jobs. So the location of where you worked changed. And I think as a result, and it wasn't great, but engagement levels in 2021 were the highest they were for Gallup 12 for about a 15-year stretch running. Now, they were really bad still. They were in the 30s, but they started to trend up because I feel like employees felt like their employer cared about them. Key part. Then there was this big push on, and it came from SHRM and other organizations, about all the way we've looked at hiring, we're throwing it out the window and we're going to skills. We're not putting such an emphasis on educational levels. Maybe we'll look at experience as an important part, but do you have the necessary skills to do the job? At my most recent SHRM conference that I went to, nobody talked about skills. Matter of fact, they were doubling down the other way. Relevant experiences that you had and the practicality of you being able to do your job. And then the last part that I think is radically changing the workforce is the anticipation and the reality of how artificial intelligence will disrupt certain positions. I am a writer. I've written 2 books. I'm on the verge of writing my 3rd. Our 2nd book is at our editor, our publisher right now. And when I hired the publisher, I asked them, is a human being going to read the book, or is artificial intelligence going to read the book? And he looked at me and said, John, as of right now, a human will, but in about 6 months, that will radically change, and we will not be using humans to read our content. We will use AI platforms to inform our readers on where to focus. I said, what's the impact to you? He says, I think we can do about 10x book edits versus having a human being read that. All kinds of other places where that's been disrupted. I see it a lot in marketing. I get bombarded every day with how sales automation can be improved as a CEO of my business. Why does all that matter? Because we're roughly going to spend 77,000 hours of our lives working if you work full-time and work a full career. And as it relates to the location part, here's the thing that I see happening. there is a significant push in corporate America to return to office 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
Employers right in our backyard. Scott, Sherwin-Williams is the one that I think of right now, First Energy. I just saw an announcement that PNC is making that same edict. They obviously know something about the fact that work from home doesn't work for corporate America. And if I can't see you doing your job, or we don't provide a forum for you to be able to collaborate with your employees, or we're losing our shirt on all this office space throughout the United States and globally, we need to be able to find a way to get a return on that investment. To me, I feel like organizations need to be flexible in where they work to accommodate and provide a chance for great employees to want to work at your business. Doesn't mean you can be remote and fully in the office. There's got to be some sort of marriage. I feel like that's what works best. And because we do a lot of search work in that perspective, Scott, it's a chance for us to realize, what does the marketplace want? Employers want you to work in an office. Employees want to work from home. That's a big change. I believed in this idea of skills. I like the concept of it, but I thought it was so unique, the pivot that's happened in roughly 3 years, that it became like the hotbed topic. And now all of a sudden we're moving off of it. And I just can't quite figure out why. I'm not an expert on that. I do like the idea of skills-based hiring, behavioral-based interviewing. I like the idea of tell me an example of when, show me that you can do the actual job. But I also feel like it's as important, if not more, to hire based upon character and culture fit as it is in skills. You hire for skill, you fire for fit. And then the last item on why I think work is changing so much, and all of us have heard that those two words too often of AI, or those two letters of AI, are artificial intelligence. And I think it's position dependent about how much artificial intelligence will disrupt and change each job. And I think it's critical for you as an employee, if you're listening to this, or an executive trying to figure out what to do, is to figure out where AI can make you more efficient, more effective, and lean into it, because ultimately it's going to be less expensive than hiring a full-time employee. And I know that corporations, their primary objective, especially if you're publicly traded, is to meet and increase shareholder value. And if we can find ways to reduce the number one expense, indirect expense we have inside of our business, I know that entrepreneurs and executives and shareholders are going to run toward that.
I just had a friend of mine who runs a digital marketing agency here in Northeast Ohio say, we were thinking about hiring a couple people, but we just bought some AI tools. The equivalent of what would have been the salary of 2 employees, they invested in subscriptions. And it was just an interesting comment. What jobs within the HR function do you think are most at risk of shifting more rapidly than others?
2, I'll give you specifically, and I'm closest to them in my business. 1 is recruiting. I think the idea of increasing the chances of letting technology help us source high quality candidates, because that is the number one thing that HR and recruiting professionals don't want to do as an aggregate. One of the most unique things about when I wrote my book, I would survey and study and interview HR professionals. I'd ask them what they loved about their job, and I asked them what they hated. And 80% of the people that answered them, again, these are HR professionals responsible for attracting and recruiting and interviewing and onboarding employees. They would say, I hate recruiting. I heard it once, I heard it twice, I heard it 10 times, I heard it 40 times. About the 35th time, I'm like, that's the same answer I've gotten all before. How do we change that? Wow. Because hiring and people, HR, is your number one indicator for non-HR professionals on how good of a job you do or do not do as an HR professional. And if you hate the thing that is the number one indicator of what everybody else thinks HR does, that is a significant issue. The second area, Scott, and I just finished and have our Payroll Like a Boss manuscript at our editor. I wrote a chapter in the book about the talent shortage that's going to happen in payroll. It's already happening. There are 93% of all payroll professionals are over the age of 35, meaning 7% are from the age of 21 to 35. We are having significantly higher, more baby boomers and later generation Gen Xers retiring than those that want to get into payroll. The problem with the new entrance into payroll is that no one that I've ever met, except for one individual out of probably 5,000 payroll professionals, told me when I was a little kid or in high school, I wanted to get into payroll. And the reason why that gentleman said it is because his mom was an icon in payroll and he idolized his mother. True story.
Yeah.
I have asked 4,999 other payroll professionals, what did you want to do when you dreamt about your employment? None of them said payroll. Every single one of them was voluntold to get into payroll. Oh, you're good with numbers. Or, oh, Sally just left. I don't know who else can do payroll. Scott, can you do payroll? Sure. The most interesting thing about that is that once they get into it, they're into it. They don't leave. There's something about the control, the power, the juice. Like I just talked to an executive that runs about a 27,000 employee payroll.
Wow.
She oversees a large aggregate company. She has a large team. And she says every other week when she gets a notification from her payroll supervisor that we're ready to approve payroll, she gets butterflies in her stomach every single time she has to commit to that payroll because she knows if I screw this up, all hell is going to break loose.
Wow.
And here's why I think this is so important. The spoken, the documented, the true belief in what we do and why we go to work is to get paid.
Yeah.
If not, you are a volunteer at a nonprofit, and all of us do that, and we know what that deal is. But the reason why we go to work, why you worked at John Carroll for as long as you did, was to get payment. The reason why I started my career and worked at ADP was to get paid. If I didn't get paid once, like that's a major problem. I didn't get paid twice. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge. If we don't have competent and skilled payroll professionals to do the job, that's the most critical part of a deal between an employee and employer, all of a sudden we're going to have a challenge. As a result, there's going to be a significant influx of automation and AI and robotics around payroll.
Yep.
Although organizations are still going to have to manage that. And that's where I see the skill changing, where in essence, Scott, if you and I were payroll professionals and we were responsible for a payroll function, we probably wouldn't have as many people in it, but we would have more robots. We would have more automation. We would have more AI that we then have to oversee to make sure they're not being biased, that they're not making a mistake. And although they have an increased chance of getting it right, some may prove that to be the case in a human being, they're still going to make a mistake. And in order for that skill development to change, in order for workplaces to change, I think jobs as an aggregate are going to change exponentially.
How about the learning and development space? Are you seeing anything there from an automation standpoint?
To me, what's happening with learning and development, what AI will do for that is that, Scott, however you learn best, whatever that is, maybe it be asynchronous, maybe synchronous, maybe it be you read better, maybe you're an audio learner, whatever the case might be, these learning and development technologies are going to make your experience very personalized versus trying to make you learn like everybody else is going to learn. That's my perspective. And I think that's going to be great because ultimately we end up getting the most out of those kind of training and development opportunities where it fits our learning styles versus being forced to do it the way the organization or the company wants us to.
Awesome. Okay. So that's theme one. What are you seeing in some other elements out there that you want on people's radar?
I'll quickly pivot and keep on the AI platform is technology and the adoption of it and the use of it as individuals, as managers, as executives and organizations. The companies that I have seen that has been the most successful have been incredibly intentional about having technology being a critical differentiator in their business. The ones that I feel like do the best is they combine that technology flair that they also are sales organizations. I hear Mark Cuban say this all the time. You're not really a widget company. You're a marketing company that just so happens to make a widget. From that, what do you take away from it? There has to be a way that we as organizations can be very intentional and specific about improving the skills of our individuals that work for us, whether they're an intern, whether they're entry level, whether they're a manager, a supervisor, an executive or director. How can you improve your technical skill set? I was blessed to have probably the best, most well-known thought leader, modern day thought leader, be quoted in my book, HR Like a Boss, in my technology section. And he said the number one lacking competency of HR leadership is not even close, and it's the lack of technical advancement. They have such an ability to improve their technical skill set, but they haven't for a wide variety of reasons. If you have any way to improve your technology use, whether it's you have a CRM you're responsible for, there's an ATS you have that you're responsible for, you have UKG or ADP or PeopleSoft or Oracle as your payroll or HR system, immerse yourselves in figuring out how to use that system at its most optimal level, because you'll be able to do more in less time, and you'll be seen differently by your colleagues because you have leveraged technology in a way that others are not. I use simple examples or more current based. The other one is using and leveraging AI. If you haven't figured out how to use AI in your job, you are behind. I don't think people are going to lose jobs because of AI. They're going to lose jobs to people that are using AI better than you as an employee may not be, because you're afraid or concerned about what AI is all about. The immersion into technology, how can you become better at it as a business professional to slice that piece of bread at work a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner, a little bit more consistently, to me is a significant, great use of your time in developing that skill.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that scene in Hidden Figures, the NASA film, where you had the human computers. These were literally humans who were computing, and then an actual computer was delivered to NASA. And the individuals who stayed relevant and learned that tool, they were of great value to the organization. Had they not, the organization would have moved forward. So I think incredibly wise advice there. Are you learning that, and are you putting yourself in that position? You can call it upskilling. You can call it what you want. Are you relevant? If your skill set is DOS, I don't know, maybe there's an airline that's still using the dot matrix printer in DOS. But probably,
Avis Car Rental does.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you are relevant in
Go to Avis.
niches.
Well, the cool part about that, Scott, because I know you and I talked a lot about this on my podcast. Here's the lethal combination if you want to become a badass.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't be great at something if you're going to cut corners. We're not talking about average. We're talking about great.
Yep.
And when I talk about being great, is the listener being the greatest version of yourself you're capable of being. If you want to be a golfer, I know I dropped this about beating Tiger Woods once. I never compared myself against Tiger Woods ever, because I knew he was a different human being with different physical skills than I had. How could I become better as a golfer? Now in my business life, how can I become better as a business leader, a CEO, a writer, a keynote speaker, and a leader? Yep. And here's the thing. This is the lethal combination. We talked about it a lot when I had you on my show, the HR Like a Boss podcast. If you can combine technical skill development with the soft and power skills that go into leadership, communication, problem solving, emotional intelligence, you can even go into discipline, a long list of them, which I know you're super passionate about. If you can do those two things and you spend your time focused there, I'm going to guarantee you're going to start elevating yourself from the others that are within your organization, and you will be a different version of yourself in 2 years than you are currently at this time. And my main suggestion to you is this: 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Focus just little increments every single day. You're not going to turn into the greatest leadership resource in your company just by saying, I want to do it, or reading one book. You're not going to learn technology by taking one course. 10 minutes, incremental atomic habits. When you stack those days consistently, and here's my recommendation on that too, you can take 1 day break, but don't take a second day break, because if you do, all of a sudden you have a new habit, which means you're not investing in yourself.
Yeah. Love it. Yes. And that compounding 1% every day, 1% better every day, so to speak. It's just, and I love your framing of, look, 10 minutes, hop on LinkedIn, follow some thought leaders on LinkedIn in the space that you're interested in. And I love that kind of that double threat. You've got the social, and as Amy Edmondson says, the soft skills are the hard skills. So you got that locked in, right? The social, emotional intelligence and the people part. And then that tech part, that's a powerful combination.
And I would tell you, and I said this before, and I really truly feel like this, and I coach high school golfers and middle school golfers in our community and try to get them to be the best version of themselves while having fun playing a very difficult sport. I cannot encourage you enough to never compare yourself against anyone else inside of your organization. If you end up following a thought leader, be like, oh, I want to be like him. Why can't I quite be like him? My guess is they've been working at the craft that they're speaking on through social media for decades.
Yeah.
While you're just starting to try to get a little bit better, just see yourself incrementally getting better over time. Just small little snippets every single day, and don't break the chain. Don't break that habit.
Now, I know networking is a passion of yours, and building that network and investing in that network. So in the spirit of, are we engaging in some things consistently? Talk a little bit about that space as we begin to wind down our time.
I'll be quick and brief. The first job I had out of college was a sales job. In order for me to be successful, I had to network with CPAs and bankers that were all of age, or most of them, to be my parent or significantly older brother or sister. And I had to find a way as a 23-year-old college kid, wet behind my ears, who probably wanted to be golfing and playing professional golf, but I realized I had to get a real job. How do I relate to these people? And what ended up happening was, at some point, probably 2 or 3 months into it, I just realized, don't go there to get a referral. Go there to get to know the person.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by how my mind changed on that. Just how can I be curious? How can I be inquisitive? How can I get to know you, Scott, or get to know you, whoever I was making a connection with? And as a result of me doing that, Scott, I was different. Yep. Because most the other sales reps that were going there, what were they going for? Hey, Scott, you got a referral for me today? Oh, you don't? Peace, I'm out. Versus, hey, Scott, how's your son doing? I know the last time I was here, you were about to do a recital with a guitar recital, and they were all excited about it. And all of a sudden you remember that.
Yep.
Creating that personal relationship is one of the most important things we can do as human beings, not only at work, but in our personal lives. The next thing I would share with you when it comes to building community is, don't do it when you have to. Do it consistently all the time. I run into people because of the line of work I'm in, doing recruiting and consulting advisory support. I get a lot of candidates come to me and say, I got to dust off my LinkedIn profile. I got to start networking with people. And they're like, I don't really like networking. My recommendation of doing that on a consistent basis is for a couple things. One, we get energy from other people. In the spirit of that energy, you might find your new best friend. I know that's hard for us as adults to think, two middle-aged men thinking about, can I make a new best friend? You actually can when you're intentional about that. And you might meet someone that just lines up with who you are. I think that could be really cool. And as you go through that community building, you all of a sudden start to build out your Rolodex. And I know I might be aging myself when using that term, but we as business professionals are responsible for making our organizations better, solving problems, leveraging opportunities that we have. But there might be a domain level of expertise that comes into your world that you need to know a lot about, but you don't.
Yep.
But I know Scott Allen's great when it comes to developing the 4 keys of leadership development. And when it comes time for me to do that, I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel myself. I'm going to call Scott and say, hey, Scott, give me the 25 years of wisdom you've learned over X period of time to help me compress my ability to deliver great content and insight to my organization to help us with that. So intentionality around it, consistency about it, and knowing that you're building your own ecosystem of experts that are going to make you look incredibly competent, even though you don't have all that intrinsic knowledge in between your ears.
Yeah. I think we are so aligned on all of this conversation, but I probably have 2 or 3 networking conversations a week, and that might just be an individual that I haven't talked with in a while, a lunch, a Zoom, a phone call, and it's an incredibly important investment. It's an incredibly important investment. And if you start that habit and really have that mindset in your 20s and over the course of your career, it's an investment that will pay off over and over. And I see it as well. It might be a former student who has been laid off, and all of a sudden they're rushing and they haven't built. And I always think of it as making your net work. Like there's a net because you have an interwoven connecting system of relationships that if I fall, I can make my net work. And it's just, I think there's going to be a lot of disruption in the coming years, 4 or 5 years, as some of these shifts occur. You've given a great idea of, look, skate where the puck is going. What are you doing to build those social emotional intelligence, the soft skills? What are you doing to build the hard skills and some of the being expert in these technologies? But then along with that, I think comes having that web of relationships and putting yourself, you might be the hub, you might have some centrality because you're the convener, but investing that time and engaging in those communities. And that's why I have so much respect with what you do, because you are a center of gravity for that community and you are a convener. And God, boy, who wins the most there? You build so many relationships, have so many connections, and that is available to everyone. It just is, to go and participate and be a part of that.
You got to kiss a lot of frogs to find along the way the people you connect with, and that's okay. You're going to meet someone that you don't have that personal connection with. And here's the reason why it became so important to me, Scott, is having spoken to a number of people that are working and then being blessed to occasionally go to a retirement party. The number one thing I heard people that were working complain about was another employee, whether it was their direct manager, whether it was Joe in accounting who was super annoying, or if I sat with this person at lunch, they were a loud chewer. Oh my God, the bane of my existence. How am I going to do this? They complain about the people that they're working with. But then for those that retire, every single person that I've asked, what do you miss the most about working? It's people.
Yep.
And in my mind, I thought to myself, wait a second, if I'm going to fast forward the tape to me retiring, and I told I was 52 when I'm 62 years old. And if I'm anywhere near eligibility for all the free benefits I've earned over time, is that going to be the case? Why don't I be intentional about building those solid relationships now so that when I know I'm going to miss them, I'm going to miss some really cool people. Yep. And I'm going to be intentional in my retirement about how I can support them.
Yep. Love it. Okay. Brett. Brett Bernatovicz. That's who you go to prom with. That is like the prom king, Brett Bernatovicz. That is the key player in an 80s kind of rom-com type film starring Matthew McConaughey.
Brett super long hair. It's a little, yes. I got a guitar. I can play some rockin' heavy metal. So thank you for calling me Brett, Scott.
Okay. To land this plane, as you reflect on the conversation we've had, what's the practical wisdom here for listeners? What do you want to underline or bold?
I'll go back to the key part of find a way to become better at your job by using technology and be incredibly intentional about the soft skill development you have to be a better communicator, a better relationship builder, a better problem solver, or a better leader. This is my belief that every single person in the world is a leader, everyone. And people are paying attention to what you're doing. You may not be in a traditional leadership role inside of your organization, but people are paying attention to you. And let's just make the most of this opportunity we have with our life and be the best version of yourself you can possibly be.
And what I loved most about our conversation is that you said that at 52 and 53, we're in midlife. So that means we got a lot of time to collect some new friends, build some relationships, hang out, do good things, make a difference. Sir, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time today. And until next time.
You have just finished another episode of Practical Wisdom for Leaders with Scott Allen. To contact me, visit scottjallen.net or send me a note at scott@scottjallen.net. I'm also on LinkedIn, so let's connect. If you have feedback, I'd love to hear it. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And now here's my daughter, Emily, with the outro.
You've been listening to Phronesis, Practical Wisdom with Scott Allen.